Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on a good old-fashioned Thursday. Plenty to get through on today's show. A lot more with Utah State football, some good Pac-12 and Mountain West talk, a lot of different things. Previewing college football. There's games happening today on Thursday, and so we'll begin previewing the weekend a little bit early. Some other Mountain West teams in action today. But before we get into all that, we've got a special guest on today's show, Sandy Barbour, the interim athletics director at Utah State. Thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and excited to be to this first weekend.
So I know you've had a very busy last few weeks jumping in here temporarily with this position, but I kind of wanted to ask, just what was it like for you and how that process worked of getting you to Utah State to be the interim athletic director? What was that process like getting you involved?
Well, I worked for a consulting company since I retired actively from college athletics a little over 3 years ago. I've worked for a consulting company called Huron, and Utah State reached out to them I don't know whether they had me specifically in mind or whether it was just they knew that Huron had done this kind of thing in the past. And Utah State expressed an interest in could we help them with an interim solution for the time being. And I got a call from my boss at Huron and said, would you be interested in being the interim at Utah State? And I said, absolutely, I'd love to do that. So it just went very, as you were kind of alluding to, went very quickly from there.
So, Sandy, if I'm not mistaken, so we know this is interim. This is a limited amount of time for you to be in Logan. There is a clock here for you, and help us walk through what you've been doing since you've been here. I know part of that is setting up a committee to find your permanent replacement, but what are some of the things that you have been doing here on campus for Utah State?
Yeah, actually, the committee and the entire search process is under the watchful eye of President Smith, interim President Smith, and so I certainly will, should they need or desire consultation with me, I'm happy to assist. As you can imagine, I'm fielding a lot of calls from people that are very interested in the job, really, really talented people. So I can tell you it's a great job that is attracting a lot of interest. And so I think good Aggies can feel very comfortable that they're going to end up in good hands. But really what we've done in partnership with obviously the athletic department and the staff that is here is worked very closely with the staff and coaches to keep everything running. I mean, we've volleyball is getting ready to play. Soccer's already played 2 games. Football's getting ready to kick it off on Saturday. Cross country's going Saturday morning. And from my perspective, it's only fair to the young men and young women that are wearing Utah State uniforms. This is one of their very precious 4 years. And it doesn't matter to them that there's an interim athletic director or that Utah State needs an athletic director. They're going to go out there and wear their uniform proudly, and we owe it to them to make sure the conditions for success are there. So in a nutshell, that's really what we've been doing. But we've also been preparing, kind of looking at doing an analysis of maybe strengths and weaknesses, opportunities. Everybody in college athletics today is looking for new revenue generation opportunities. And I always cringe when we hear that and when I have to say it. But the truth of the matter, that is the truth of the matter. But let's not forget, we're only looking for revenue to help fund the effort. And the effort on behalf of student athletes, and in our case, our programs and our student athlete body and their pursuit of excellence, both in the classroom and in their athletic venues, and then certainly with the Pac-12 entry looming July 1st, 2026, there's a lot of work to be done to prepare Utah State for that inevitability, to work with the Pac-12 with the conference to be ready on July 1. We're creating essentially we're creating a conference from the ground up. Yes, we're going to use the Pac-12 brand. It's a brand I'm very familiar with. I was the athletic director at Cal for 10 years under that flag, and it's one that's got a lot of brand equity. But other than that, we are building from the ground up. So we've been spending a lot of our time there to make sure that Utah State can anticipate both in terms of operation, but also financially what's expected to enter the Pac-12 next summer.
So what are some of the things that fans may not understand about making this kind of move? Because say you're essentially building a conference from the ground up. Transitioning Utah State, I think a lot of fans you go from playing one conference and you start playing another. But what are the things that fans, even us in the media, may not quite appreciate the difficulty of changing conferences, especially at such a critical time in college sports?
Yeah, there are two aspects of that. One is the conference itself and the infrastructure, the conference office, the conference governance. All of those things need to be decided. How are we going to do championships? How are we going to, what's the governance structure going to look like? But then also, frankly, more exciting things like media contracts. We've just announced the second piece of our media partners yesterday with the CW, and so it's that. It's what's our bowl lineup going to look like for football in the new conference. That has to be built. That's all, and it was the point I was making before. That all has to be built from the ground up. And then, and you got to build an officiating program. You got to build the Pac-12 staff. The commissioner actually was my deputy athletic director when I was at Cal, so I know Teresa Gould very well. And she has had a very skeleton staff this year when they've been servicing Oregon State and Washington State. But obviously we will grow to 9 on July 1st of next year. And she needs to build that staff up to service a full conference as opposed to just the two, which has been those 2 years. And then you have the more Utah State centric things like we've got to change all of our branding. All of the Mountain West nomenclature comes down off of facilities, off of stationery, off the website, you name it, and the Pac-12 logo comes up. And I'm making that sound really easy. It's not easy at all. We're in the throes of just making sure we inventory what all that looks like, and then how do you operationalize that? How is all of it fabricated? How much does it cost? And can we and when can we actually do it? When do you got to resand your basketball floor maybe over the course of the summer? When can you actually put the Pac-12 logo on it? Do you have to wait till July 1st? The answer to that is no. No. But those are the kinds of things that take an inordinate amount of time because it's very detail heavy.
I can just imagine tracking down every single media guide format and finding every Mountain West logo to replace. That sounds like a nightmare.
Or in every facility, yeah. Again, we're talking to Sandy Barbour. She's the interim athletic director at Utah State University. And I want to continue on this discussion about the future transition for Utah State into the Pac-12. How well are the Aggies positioned for that transition? And what do you see as the future of the Pac-12 as somebody who's been there before, as somebody who has been involved in the college athletics landscape for quite a long time? How do you see Utah State positioned in this transition and the future of that conference?
Yeah, two very different but obviously related questions. First of all, I see Utah State as very well positioned. We've got some momentum. The success that we've been able to have in men's basketball, we need to continue. I have zero doubt under Coach Calhoun that we're gonna have that there, and that's exciting to watch. And I keep hearing about what our arena looks like and feels like, and I can't wait. And then I certainly have supreme confidence in Bronco and what he's going to do. And again, excited to get that off and running on Saturday. This university has invested in athletics. I think they understand, and I also know that they will hire their next president who will share that value in terms of how intercollegiate athletics can contribute to, can elevate the brand of the institution. And this was an institutional decision to move to the Pac-12. It's very easy to pigeonhole it as an athletics decision. It was an athletics mechanism, but it was a decision that was made about the brand of the university to move to the Pac-12. From a Pac-12 standpoint and what the future is, first of all, I think it starts with that brand, and that's what a huge advantage because it's recognized. It's recognized by the media. It's recognized nationally. Now, the West Coast is always, again, having been the athletic director at Cal for 10 years, the West Coast has always had its challenges with capturing the share of media that it frankly so well deserves, but we continue to pound away at that. But the landscape of college athletics is so crazy right now. I couldn't even begin to predict what it's going to look like 10 years from now. And I think our move to the Pac-12, who the Pac-12 is, what its values are, what its markets are, what its traditional success in sports across the board. And obviously Utah State is well positioned in women's gymnastics and soccer and volleyball. And, we've got lots of things to really be excited about and really tout in terms of athletic success. So I think obviously our vision would be that we move closer to if not into what we're currently calling the Power Four. But to me, there are some mechanics around it that are obviously very important. But to me, there is no Power Four or Group of Five. It's how do you perform in football? How do you perform in men's basketball? How do you perform in women's basketball? Where do you rank? And if we rank third in that, then we're top three. If we rank fifth in something, then we're top five. And so I think there's no secret. In order to get better media contracts, in order to move up in whatever pecking order you want to perceive, we got to win. We got to have success. And in order to do that, each of us as new Pac-12 teams have to invest in having that success. And I'm very comfortable that Utah State is doing that.
So you've mentioned a few times media deal, and obviously that's still ongoing. There's been parts of it released, but as you've been part of those conversations, because CBS and the CW are part of that, how much more should fans expect? And is there a timeline that they can maybe expect as far as eventually getting this whole media deal put together and knowing exactly where Pac-12 and Utah State games are going to be in the media landscape?
Yeah, July 1st, 2026.
Come on.
Technically, that is the deadline.
It's not, obviously. But it's about getting it right and getting the very, very best package, because our commissioner has been very consistent about this is not solely about money. This is about our brand. This is about launching the Pac-12. Now, don't get me wrong, money's important, obviously. But I do think that there are going to be, in what remains to be sorted out, some trade-offs relative to money, to the financial aspects of the package, and then the exposure and the platform and what it does to help drive the brand of the Pac-12, and that's all to come. And then don't forget that one of the assets that the Pac-12, the legacy Pac-12, brings to us is the Pac-12 networks, is what we now call Pac-12 enterprises. And boy, I was in the league when we launched the original the 7 Pac-12 networks, and although overall it was not a financial success necessarily, it was an amazing asset for the institutions in terms of building brand, and not just brand for athletics. It was a phenomenal asset, and I have every reason to believe it will continue to be for driving institutional brand and helping with enrollment and helping with other aspects of furthering the institution.
Sandy, I want to ask about the job that you're currently occupying, the chair in which you sit. The deadline to apply for that position was yesterday. There's been some debate, and this happens every time any of these positions open. How much is, and based on your experience overall as being an athletic director at various different institutions, weighing the value of local ties, whether that be to the institution itself or to the state or the area generally, versus bringing in somebody from the outside. How much weight is there on either one of those? Can it be a blend of both? In your experience, what does that look like? And I don't know if you can shed any light on what that looks like so far in the current candidate pool.
I have no visibility into the current candidate pool, so my comments that's being run by President Smith, and I think he has a chair of the committee, and the committee is doing its work and will make recommendations to him. So any comments I make will not be based on my knowledge of the candidate pool. I think the local ties and the direct familiarity with any particular institution is always a question, and I think there's no doubt that if you can find everything else you want in a candidate in terms of, do they have demonstrated experience as a fundraiser? Do they have demonstrated experience from a leadership standpoint? Are they a revenue generator? Are they committed to academics? Are they committed to student welfare? All of those kinds of things. If you can find everything you want in the person with the local ties, then I think that's the person you go for. But I don't think local ties are the be all and end all from the standpoint of, I don't think you sacrifice those other things. Now, having said that, I believe that one of the most important things that any leadership position needs is you have to be a fit for, in our case, what we're talking about, for the institution. But you have to be a fit for the organization. And I think there are different ways to be a fit than to necessarily just have local ties. And I think actually there's this, it's not a new word, but it's been used a lot in the last few years around athletics, and that's alignment. And I think that's actually a really good way. This person has to be aligned with the campus and its values. And again, I think there are more ways than just having local ties. I mean, it's certainly possible that someone with local ties isn't aligned with the institution's vision and values, but it's more likely, certainly that they are.
So, Sandy, we're coming up against the time that we have with you. I'll pester you one more about the current AD job. You might know a little bit more about this, but because it directly impacts you and how long you'll be here. Do you know roughly the timeline to expect? I know I keep asking about timelines, but the timeline the fans can maybe expect for until they see a new AD, a long-term AD in this program.
Yeah, I know that President Smith is being very aggressive and is pushing the search committee and the search firm very, very hard. And I think that I think it would not be unreasonable to expect that we could have somebody named before the 1st of October.
That's a good day. Well, we're going to
Because
hold you to that.
your contract is through mid-September?
You guys know your stuff, don't you?
We're looking into it.
Well, there's this thing called public records, right?
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Yes.
Yeah. There are dates certainly in that contract. I think that was written the way it was to help expedite the process. But look, guys, let's face it. I'm gonna be here as long as we're needed. I made a commitment to come to Utah State because I'd never been here, but I knew it by reputation and phenomenal people, great institution. I want to help. I want to be of value. And however long you need me in Logan, I'll be here.
And really just my last question, then we can wrap this up. This kind of circles back to some other questions that we've discussed, but there is legal action between Utah State and the Mountain West, and that often requires some representation from the institution to be involved in those meetings, whether it's mediation or other proceedings. How involved have you been in that, or are there other representatives for Utah State in those discussions?
Yeah, I have not been involved at all in that litigation. It's my understanding that that's all being handled by our Office of General Counsel.
I have to imagine you're glad about that fact.
I am.
Yeah.
You got plenty of other things on your plate to worry about.
Definitely. All right. Thank you so much, Sandy, for joining us today. Really glad you could take some time out. We went a little bit over, so we apologize for that. But glad to have you on the show, and maybe we'll look forward to seeing you some other time as well.
Thanks. Appreciate being on, and appreciate the opportunity to talk about Utah State.
All
Go
right.
Aggies.
Thank you, Sandy.
All right. We'll go ahead and take a break. We'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press.